And Dad? My dad hummed his response. I think I found who to marry, I said. That took his attention off his newspaper and focused on me. He gave me a brief pause before talking. Before we continue with the story, do not forget to click on the notification button in order to get notified at every new video posted. May God bless you. Who is she? He asked. She is someone I have admired for a long while. We've been dating for a while too, and I felt it was right. So I popped the question and she said yes. How long are we talking about? 6 months. Dad interrupted with an exhale, and it was one of disapproval. I just sat there and dumbfounded, hoping for something positive from him. At that moment, all the fears of my union to Jessica turned, and I couldn't do anything about it. I recalled the day I popped the question to her. She was beyond words. Tears had filled her eyes, even though she had her doubts. First, we were from conflicting tribes, social status, and even education. On every basis, we weren't the perfect match, but I was willing to try and make us work. Son, are you sure you're ready for this? Dad asked me. Yes, Dad, I am accomplished. I can provide for the two of us and even a family. I can very much take care of her, I told him. He took a very long pause again and then he said, Okay, let's do this. We got my uncles and other important family heads and we went to Jessica's house for a proper marriage proposal according to tradition. Everything went unsuccessfully and a month later, we were married. We had gone through all the process of customary, legal, and white wedding. I was the happiest man alive and I found myself fortunately blessed to be marrying such a wonderful woman. I was her first in every way, and what more could I ask? I trust her and she trusts me. What could go wrong? We spent our honeymoon exploring for different parts of the world. Besides, I'm financially stable to sponsor our trips. The first 6 months were blissful until my personal assistant at the office followed me home. It was an impromptu decision to come to my place for work and complete some projects. In preparation for a global virtual meeting, I agreed, but I forgot to inform my wife about it. We left work and stopped by a bakery to pick a few snacks to eat while we were at it. I entered the house and the parlor was empty. I called out for Jessica but got no response. I left my phone on the table and told my PA to get comfy while I went to the kitchen to bring her some water. I took a while, then heard a noise in the parlor. I came out and I saw Jessica pointing a weapon at my personal assistant, threatening her life if she doesn't leave her house. What on earth was going on? This is not the Jessica I married. This was someone else. The Jessica I married is a swift and soft-spoken person. She would never threaten someone's life. I begged her to calm down, then sent my PA home. Later that evening, I questioned Jessica, asking her what was going on. She did not respond. She just ignored me, turned her face and went to bed and slept. I let it pass because I thought it was probably just a phase. About 2 weeks later, my sister came visiting. She had a conference in town and didn't want to be lodged in a hotel. Plus, I thought it would be good to have her spend some time around Jessica so they could bond. But our plans crashed. Jessica wasn't the best host. Her aura reeked of hostility, just that my sister couldn't stay around. Just like that last time, I returned from work and the house was empty. Jessica was the dutiful wife as she welcomed me. I asked about my sister's whereabouts, but she brushed it under the carpet, saying she didn't know. She left to run me a bath when I received a call from my sister. I turned out Jessica had thrown her out of the house, mocking her to get married. That was not funny anymore. I marched up to our room and confronted Jessica. She gave me the cold shoulder like I expected it, but I had already promised myself that I wasn't letting her off just like that. She turned to walk out, but I caught her arm and pulled her back to me. It was a verbal confrontation. After that, Jessica called me the most insulting names ever imagined. I was shocked, disappointed, heartbroken, and hurt. How could she do that? She then went upstairs, packed her properties, which consisted mostly of clothes, shoes, bags, and wigs, and left even before I could stop her. That was not just normal, and something was definitely wrong somewhere. I called my parents and told them about Jessica. Dad instructed me to come over to our family house for a few days. While Dad is the mind of reasoning at home, Mom is the prayer warrior. I'm not the boss myself, so I took permission for some work days off, having told my boss that I had a family emergency to deal with. I had barely entered my father's house when my younger sister Brenda attacked me. It did not end there. She extended it to my wife. Mom and Dad calmed her down and then let me into the house. Nighttime reached, and still I had neither heard from Jessica nor spoken to her. I dropped messages in her phone, letting her know I was at my parents' and praying for her, but I got no response. That night, we did a family prayer, and everyone went into their respective rooms. Mom and Dad asked me to stay back. They wanted to know if there were any erratic behaviors with Jessica while we were dating or during the first months of our marriage. There was none. We stayed up until the strike of 12 midnight. Then the prayers began. It was all tongues and declarations. The session was so heated that I began to shiver. I literally felt the presence of God, and before I knew it, I was laid out prostrate on the floor, crying. The only words that left my mouth were that God should save my marriage and bring Jessica back home. After about 3 hours, we ended the prayer and went to bed. The following day was calm and more peaceful, and the weight I felt in when I was coming to my parents seemed to have been lifted up from my shoulders. I woke up and went downstairs for breakfast. Brenda was more welcoming this time around. She was even the one who prepared a special breakfast for me. We were halfway gone into eating when we heard rapid knocks at the door. Confused, we shared a look amongst ourselves. Then Dad and I went to open the door. The moment we opened it, a frantic Jessica rushed into the parlor, panting. Her dresses were torn, her body was dirt-stained, and she looked like a cat dragged in her. There was so much fear registered in her face that she could barely speak. She kept on pointing towards the door, telling us to shut it close and throw the keys away. I tried to make sense out of it, but she kept muttering, "They're after me, but they couldn't get in. They're at the gate," under her breath. This was strange. Immediately, Mom swapped to a warrior and began to pray. It was a spiritual connection, and the rest of us joined in prayers. Before we knew what was happening, Jessica fell on the floor and began to display a man-like behavior. She was so violent we could barely hold her down. I was stupefied. The next thing I knew, she was confessing that she's a spiritual husband. I freaked out. Apparently, the spiritual husband was upset that she got married to a good man. As such, he began to work in her to create division between her and her husband so that she would be thrown out. That was when I understood why she treated my PA and my sister that way. After her confessions, Mom prayed and delivered her. I spent the rest of my days off with Jessica and my parents. Not long after that, we returned home and lived happily ever after, all thanks to God. No more spiritual husbands, no more hostilities. Thinking back on when Dad asked me if I was ready for marriage, this incident convicted me more of the hurdles of marriage, and I was glad I stood by my wife when she needed me the most.